Welcome to our podcast, A Novel Talk, hosted by Carl Lee, and I'm Wendy Kendall. My mystery book, Cat Out of the Bag, will be available April 13th. It's already on Amazon for pre-order. It's about Catherine Watson, an international purse designer and amateur sleuth who is challenged by an intriguing mystery in her hometown of Bayside. I hope you'll enjoy it. And here is your co-host.
Thanks, Wendy. I am Carl Lee, and I write paranormal fantasies. I was excited when Wendy invited me to join her as we explore genres beyond mysteries, sci-fi, and fantasy and paranormal.
This podcast episode's mystery author is so skilled, talented, and creative. She has created her own mystery subgenre, Thrillsies. She is Laura Childs, my author hero. Such a prolific writer. She's growing 3 different mystery series that all have crowds of ardent fans. The Tea Shop, Scrapbook, and Cackleberry Club. All 3 mystery series are each well established, and yet each new book brings an exciting, fresh take on characters and plot. And as if that's not enough, she also writes the Afton Tangler thrillers. They're authored as Jerry Schmidt. After a long and illustrious career in advertising, she successfully turned her efforts to writing, and fans like me are thrillsied that she did. So sit back, listeners, with a cup of your favorite tea blend, because you're in for a real treat today on A Novel Talk with Laura Childs. Welcome, Laura Childs.
Thank you so much, Wendy and Carl. I'm delighted to be here. In fact, to be back here. I was here, I think, a couple years ago, and we had just a great amount of fun. I don't know how I can top that opening you gave me, Wendy. That's just amazing. I really just try and write to entertain people. That's my whole thing in life.
Well, you're successful at that.
Thank you. First in advertising, I wrote to sell things to people. Now I get to just entertain them, which is far better, I think.
It's wonderful. Well, first, as a reader and a huge fan, congratulations and thank you for the fun of all your mystery series. And I love trying to puzzle out the suspects of who done it. Thank you for your newest, very exciting tea shop mystery, Lavender Blue Murder. It's available this month in March. In fact, I think today is the release day. It's so exciting.
Today's the day, that's right.
Can you please describe for our listeners what is a thrillsie and what are the challenges for the author in plotting and writing them?
A thrillsie is something that I kind of invented. It's a hybrid book, halfway between a cozy and a thriller. Now, cozies are kind of fun, and usually traditional cozies start out a little bit slow. You don't really get a mystery, a dead body until the 2nd, 3rd, 4th chapter. I start out totally different. I do the thriller rule of thumb, where you have bang, this huge, big opening, where I drop a dead body or an explosion or something right into the first chapter. And then I follow the thriller's rule of thumb, where you have 2 or 3 other major events that might turn the tide of the story, and then you finish up in your last couple chapters with a big bang. You do the darkest before it's dawn thing, and then you pull it all out at the end. You have your protagonist pull it all out.
It sounds really challenging for the author. Do you have particular parts that you sort of have to sweat through when you're plotting?
Well, I do plot them out. I do everything. I plot it out on a huge piece of paper, and I do a timeline, so I kind of know where I'm going. So that really, really helps me. The other thing is, there's so many delicious ways to kill people. I probably have 10 other tea shop mysteries already plotted out.
Oh my god!
I kind of know where I'm going. Yeah.
I can't wait.
Neither can I. My publisher is giving me a new 6-book contract. I'm just working on it now.
Awesome.
I think we're going to release 2 tea shop mysteries a year now.
Oh Gosh.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm going to be
Wow.
busy. I'm going to be way too busy.
As a writer, you make me dizzy, but as a reader, I'm so excited.
Oh, good.
Well, that is good. That is good news. And I know another cozy mystery writer who has dead bodies in the first couple of chapters of her
Ooh.
books too.
Could
Hmm.
it be cat out of the bag?
Could be, but I'm not going
It
to
could
let the cat
be.
out of the bag.
Yeah.
Um, you are very talented, and one of the crucial elements of a good mystery writer is the skill of misdirection, which you are amazing at. How do you manage to introduce a literal parade of suspects, each one seemingly more plausible, more guilty than the previous, and still keep the uh, actual culprit hidden right there in plain sight in front of everyone?
The bad guy, right, yeah. Well, again, it kind of goes back to plotting. I do this chart, and I put in what the actions are for my main character, my protagonist, in this case, the Yodosha, who owns the tea shop, the Indigo Tea Shop in Charleston, and I color code all my suspects so that all along, all through my plot graph, she's rubbing shoulders with all these different suspects. And then, of course, you have to give each suspect something that they're trying to hide. They all have to have a deep, dark secret. So they all look a little bit guilty. And, of course, I always try and pull in at the end the one who looks, the least bit guilty. And that's kind of the surprise. But you can't just drop it in as a red herring. That's not really fair to the reader. So you have to have some clues along the way that indicate who it could have been, so they can get to the end of the book, go back and say, aha, I thought that might have been the killer right there. It's very satisfying for readers if they can go back and see where the plot twists were.
Yep, very true.
I love that. And you always give your readers bonus gifts. In the Tea Shop Mysteries, you gift us extraordinary recipes and tea drinks to make and savor. In your newest book, Lavender Blue Murder, in the Tea Shop Mysteries, the London Fog is my favorite tea mention. But besides the mystery, I'm always intrigued to try some of the teas that your beloved character Drayton personally blends during the story. You know so much about teas. Do you have a favorite tea? And how did tea become an interest of yours? And then also, how important is research to a mystery?
Yeah, my favorite tea, I'd have to say it's Japanese green tea. I just love it. It's got a very, almost a vegetable taste to it in the mouth, and sometimes a little bit toasty, too. I'm very lucky. I'm married to Dr. Bob, he's retired now, but he was a professor of Chinese and Japanese art history. So we traveled all through Japan and China and Indonesia. In fact, one of the crazy times, we were on the bullet train going from Tokyo down to Kyoto. It was Christmas Day. And my husband said to me, "Look up, sweetie." And I looked up, and there was Mount Fuji, just silhouetted against this wonderful blue sky, and all around it were these tea gardens, just these beautiful green, billowy tea gardens. And believe it or not, when I got home from that trip, we were over there 3 weeks, when I got home, I found out from Penguin that I had a contract to write the Tea Shop Mysteries.
Oh, wonderful.
I know, it was just amazing. Now, as far as research, that really played into it. All the travels that I've done, I do a lot of taste testing. I've been to the wonderful tea museum in Hong Kong. I've been to, I think it's like a 500-year-old tea pavilion that was in Shanghai. So I've been really lucky. I've tasted a lot of teas and traveled around a bit.
And you've
And it
imparted
really helped.
I think you've imparted a lot of wisdom to Drayton. He really holds that up well.
Yes.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, yeah, he's an encyclopedia of tea. Both. What I would. We've cleared what his background is because through all of your travels. What is Theodosia's background? What special talents gives her the ability to solve these
Right.
mysteries?
Well, Theodosia worked in marketing for like 6 or 7 years, and she kind of got tired of that, 24/7 hustle bustle of advertising and marketing and promotion and all that. So that was her dream, was to open a tea shop. And one day she actually found a little, I think it was previously it had been like a stable, like a 200-year-old stable down on Church Street. And she went in and looked at it and thought, this would make a great tea shop. So she decorated it. She wrote a marketing plan. She had done that before in her background.
Mm-hmm.
So she wrote a marketing plan and raised some money and opened this tea shop. Now, Drayton, on the other hand, I have him being raised in China by missionary parents. And then he worked at one of the tea auctions that takes place in England, in London. There are tea auctions in London and Amsterdam. Those are the two major ones. And then, of course, he moved to Charleston and he became a tea sommelier. So, really, Theodosia just had to hire him. I mean, there wasn't any, Who else would she get?
Exactly. I'm a big tea fan as well, so.
Definitely. And besides Drayton, Theo is also, she's a dynamo. I just love her. And also her dear dog, Earl Grey. Here's how one of the lavender blue murder suspects describes Theodosia. You have a clever way about you, Miss Browning. You're polite and respectful, even gracious, one might say. But behind all those fine Southern manners, you're cautious and cagey. Your perceptive little mind is always running fancy computations. No wonder Meredith asked you, and I quote, to look into things. Well, I totally agree with this suspect, and I would add that Theodosia is fearless and empathetic. Looking at this character through this entire series, 21 books, how has Theodosia sort of evolved as a character?
I think maybe Theodosia is a lot less reserved than she used to be. She's a little more out there. She's a little more eager to, let's say, trespass, and she drags Drayton in with her. If they have to kind of sneak in someplace, she drags him with, and she's not afraid to come up with a ruse to question somebody who she thinks is a suspect, or to get in the back room of an antique shop to look for a clue, something like that. So she's a little more resourceful and a little trickier.
Interesting.
She's still a fine Southern lady, of course, but but I think probably fine Southern ladies are all pretty tricky. The ones I met are, anyway.
Theodosia is a great character, but you have another great character in this book that a lot of people may not think of as such, the Indigo Tea Shop. It is the central location for the story where most things happen. Not all, but most. What was your inspiration for the shop, the character? And how do you manage to give it so much character, so much life that it almost becomes its own character?
Well, it's really just pure imagination. It really is. I hadn't been in that many, local tea shops before I started writing this. I'd really only seen some overseas, and they're quite different. So I just kind of did what I imagined a tea shop would be. I thought about the pegged wood floors and these cute little windows that are, they're probably like 200-year-old glass, so they're kind of wavery, and she'd probably hang a chandelier in there, and there'd be little cafe curtains, and she'd find some antique highboys that she'd put products on and tea tins, that kind of thing. Anyway, the really cool thing is that in my description of the tea shop, of the Indigo Tea Shop, it has just captured people's imagination. I get requests all the time for plans. They want to see the actual floor plans for the tea shop.
I can imagine that.
I just have to say, I'm sorry, but whatever you imagine it to be, it is. It is. It doesn't really exist. It's kind of like that mythical mythical brigadoon that comes back every 100 years.
Uh-huh.
It's if you can imagine it, you can visit it in your
I
mind.
like the one I like the one that I created.
Yes. Sure.
Can you please talk about the importance of the settings of all three of your Thrillsies series? They're all in different cities, and each city reads almost as a character that's integral to the story. I can't even imagine any of the three series moving to a different city. How did you choose each of the cities? And as an author, how are you so successfully bringing that setting to life?
Well, I chose Charleston for the Tea Shop Mysteries because Charleston has an old tea plantation just outside of it. Now, the tea plants date back to before the Revolutionary War. Growing tea is kind of like growing wine. You need old rootstock. So people brought over, back in the 1700s, they brought over this rootstock and planted it outside Charleston. So to me, that seemed like a perfect setting. Plus, Charleston is old. It's 200. I think they just celebrated their 250th anniversary, and they've got a lot of it's spooky old homes, spooky alleys.
Yes.
Yeah, cobblestones. You've got the Atlantic Ocean rushing in. With the Cooper and the Ashley River on each side of it. There's all sorts of fog. There's spooky foghorns. It's perfect. New Orleans.
I approve.
Yeah, thank you. New Orleans for my scrapbook mystery. That's funny. My husband had the proverbial army buddy who invited us down to Mardi Gras one year. So we went down there and just got immersed in it. We were so lucky because he belonged to the Rex crew. So we got to go in the float dens and meet the float builders, and we went to private parties. We went to the Rex ball, with all with all the kids from the military school and all the debutantes being introduced. So from there, I came home and I thought, oh my gosh, I have got to write a mystery that's set there. And of course, scrapbooking had just become really big back in maybe 2003, 2004. So that seemed like the perfect thing. As far as the Cackleberry Club goes, that's set in the Midwest. Now, it's in a city called Kindred, which is fictional, but I kind of made it be like any town USA. If you're in the Midwest or you've visited the Midwest, you're going to understand the Cackleberry Club because it's this fun little cafe where you go in and you can get a piece of pie, and over the corner they got jars of pickles for sale, and they got ceramic chickens, on shelves on the wall, and it's just cute and cozy and charming.
I know places like that.
There's a lot of places like that. Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest. I love the relationship between Theodosia and Riley. How does her talent for intertwining herself in events affect their own entanglements?
Well, it usually upsets Riley quite a bit. Let's face it, he's a police detective, so he goes by the book, right? Now, Theodosia, when she investigates a crime, she doesn't have to bother with procedures, with search warrants, with reading people a Miranda. She can just snoop and question to her heart's content, and that becomes a huge bone of contention between them. So that's kind of fun, too, because it sets up, a little tension. Got to have a little tension. Got a little love tension there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, in Lavender Blue Murder, there's a wonderful seance scene that is one of many examples where you weave in some subtle humor to the intrigue, and it enhances the suspense. Can you talk a little about the use of humor in your mysteries?
I love putting humor in the mysteries. I've made the scrapbook mysteries extremely humorous, and I'm working that into more of the tea shop mysteries too. But here's the thing. I always remember there was an old Twilight Zone episode where a woman clubbed her husband to death with I think it was a lamb shank. Anyway, then she cooked the murder weapon and they ate it. And that stuck. I saw that when I was like 10 or 11 years old, and that always stuck with me. I thought, whenever there's horror, you can almost have a little bit of humor too. It works together really, really well.
It really
So I
does
keep
in your
trying to do
books.
that.
You
Yeah.
Yes,
do
Wendy.
it well.
Thank you.
I try to put a little humor in my paranormals too.
Yes, you do it well also, Carl.
Well, thank you. Um, in this novel, The Lavender Blue Murder, you and apparently the tea shop murders also.
Yeah.
You focus on using regional phrasing to cement um, the reader in South Carolina along the coast, versus using phonetic spelling and other methods that are used to uh, regionalize the manner of speech. Um, how important do you think it is for dialogue to keep the reader grounded in the setting, and how much is too much?
Yeah, I don't drop the ings like a lot of writers do. I just
Mm-hmm.
think it's hard to read. Uh, I'm more talking about things that are of Charleston, are of the South. If it's chicken purloo or cat head biscuits or something like that, descriptions. But I don't try and do the dialect or the lingo. I really don't. First of all, I don't know it very well, so I think I could be called out on it very easily. I think I did that once in a scrapbook mystery set in New Orleans, and somebody said, you sound like a Yankee trying to talk, like a New Orleans native. And I never forgot that. It scared the crap out of me. So I thought, well, I'm not going to do that again. I'm just going to be true to myself,
Yeah, well,
And
I loved how you managed that, because just through the use of your phrasing, it grounded me perfectly. I have family who are much further south than I am, and
yeah,
that's how they talk.
it is how they talk, right? Yeah.
And I didn't have to translate your book the way I have other people who have written Southern dialect into their.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
So it was really, really well done. It didn't kick me out of the story, which, when you're going, okay, what does y'all mean? Oh,
Yeah. I've never done that. Yeah. And Drayton, as a tea sommelier, he can be a tiny bit formal, but
love it.
That's just Drayton. Yeah, that's just his personality. Yeah. So, yeah, his language is a bit more formal and sometimes a little bit stiff, but that makes it kind of fun too. That makes him endearing, I think.
It does.
Rather than dropping the y'alls and dropping the ings. Yeah, not going to do that.
Well, we would love it if you would treat us and our listeners to a little reading from Lavender Blue Murder.
I'd love to do that.
Oh, good.
Okay, all right. So what I'll read to you it's a chase scene, and it's basically the second to the last chapter in Lavender Blue Murder. Theodosia trounced on the gas and screamed up the hill, Jacoby weaving back and forth wildly, trying frantically to lose her. Her jeep bucked like a wild bronco, but Theodosia remained doggedly on his trail. But where am I? Theodosia wondered. It would help enormously if I knew. In her headlights, the hill ahead looked as if it were topped with gentle clouds that slowly materialized into a faint blur of purple. Yes, they were roaring past the lavender fields. These little lavender beacons weren't bright like the navigation buoys in Charleston Harbor, but they still signified a safe harbor and told Theodosia where she was, which meant that Accent Creek was probably nearby. But which way? Left or right? Right or left? The land leveled out, and Theodosia roared up alongside Jacoby. Gritting her teeth, she made a wild move and swung the nose of her Jeep into his rear bumper. There was a horrific screech of metal as the two vehicles collided. They reared along that way, sparks flying, bumping hard, metal grinding against metal, until Theodosia finally gave her wheel a hard jerk and drove Jacoby down, down, down a hill and into, yes, there it is, Accent Creek. As Jacoby's car plunged into the creek, Theodosia hit her brakes hard. Her car fishtailed badly, shuddered, jounced, and finally came to a molar-jarring stop a precipitous 4 inches from the bank of the fast-moving creek. Nobody spoke until Drayton asked, "Are we dead yet?"
Oh, yeah.
And that's
Oh,
it.
yeah.
No, you're not. But
Thank goodness they're not. They live to tell another day.
I know.
In fact,
Thank
I'm
you
writing
so-
it right now. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the reading. It was very wonderful. I loved that scene.
Yes,
Thank
that
you
was
for
awesome.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
Thank you for joining us for a novel talk. Listeners are going to want to buy your newest Lavender Blue Murder by Laura Childs now. And for listeners who haven't read the other books in your different series, there's no time like the present to catch up. So find all the titles and lots more fun information on the website laurachilds.com. And a thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and keep reading because a novel read leads to a novel talk.